the nation reminds me of that very same metaphor implying in the current scenario. The poem is titled Gumnaam Chand Ki Ek Raat. गुमनाम चांद की एक रात को राख उठे चेहरों ने मिलकर खूब भरा पैमानों को और काट दिया इंसानों को। गुमनाम चांद की एक रात को राख उठे चेहरों ने मिलकर खूब भरा पैमानों को और काट दिया इंसानों को। सने हुए सत्ता की बू से वो मजहब के नारे थे, रंगे हुए इंसान के खूं से वो गलियां चौबारे थे। दबी हुई कोई आह, कहीं कोई टीस घुटी चटकारों में, कहीं टूट कोई चूड़ी बिखरी वहशी हाहाकारों में। अगले दिन फिर गर्म सुर्खियां छाई थी अखबारों में, कुछ छुटपुट सी तैश भरी हलचल में थी सरकारों। धीरे धीरे सबने मिलकर उस भट्टी पर रोटी सेकी और बुलंद हो तक तो ताज तो हर कुत्ते को बोटी फेंकी। फिर फन्ने दर फन्ने करके वो सुर्खी बेनाम हो गई, फिर सड़कों पे भीड़ सी निकली, गुमनाम चांद की शाम हो गई।
In these contemporary times of political and popular culture of the Indian society, we witness a variety of contradictions. Every Indian is opinionated and our differences have reached the zenith. The battle of opinions have sadly not just been fought with brave ideas. Instead, we find people celebrating their intolerance as proof of their convictions, and our legal system continues to struggle to save lives. Under the circumstances, we are holding this panel discussion on the issue of addressing the menace of mob lynching. Hence, the panelists are expected to present a piece of proposed legislation that would want to be incorporated in this battle against mob lynching.
The format of the event is as follows. The panel comprises of 4 panelists. Each panelist will be given 7 minutes, 5+2, to present the nuances of their proposed piece of legislation. They are expected to draft the pointers of the legislation that they propose, enumerate and explain them with a pinch of novelty and engagement. Once all the members have presented their case, a question-answer round will be held where each panelist will be given the opportunity to ask one question from the next panelist, and panelists will get only 2 minutes to answer that question.
After the question-answer round, each panelist will be given a 3-minute window to tell the jury as to why they think their proposed legislation was unique, effective, and will address the menace better than that of their counterparts. I request Mr. Diwakar Goel to kindly present his view.
Let's have a huge round for the panelists.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. I hope, first of all, I must define what is lynching. Then we would move to mob lynching. So lynching in the simplest form is killing of a person. And mob lynching is killing of a person by the mob. Very simple definition. Now, in India, this issue of mob lynching has grown very widely, and this is very dangerous. If we move to our history, we must see that India is a country which has respected, always respected, every opinion, every ideology. We have never ever expressed any hate towards any ideology. We have always accepted it and we have always debated it. We belong to a land which has given so many paths to liberate. But today what we see is we are approaching towards lynching. There is one slok from Mahabharata, that is, there was neither kingdom nor the king, there was neither punishment nor the guilty to be punished. Everybody was acting according to the dharma and thereby protecting each other. But now I must say that in today's era, I think everyone has his or her own concept of dharma that lets him or her to punish and decide any case, and that is on the point. Not to approach towards the definition of mob lynching is very, very difficult, because mob lynching is conducted through means. Like I must tell you, we have certain provisions in IPC, that is writing, section 146, we have nuisance, we have conspiracy, we have section 34, that is common intention, we have 107, that is abetment to do certain acts. So people from in a group are actually abetting each other towards mob lynching. Then we have section 325. We have section 141, unlawful assembly. Section 117, abetting commission of offence by the public or by more than 10 persons. We have section 254, which goes towards the where we tend to hurt the religious feelings of another person. That is very much relevant in the case of Ayodhya, where over the Ayodhya case we are very familiar that Hindu and Muslims want to place their own religious beliefs, and it led to a saddening riots over there. Moving towards the very recent cases, in 2015, the Quint.com has reported a total of 25 cases of mob lynching. The most prominent ones were the mob lynching towards cow vigilance. Mohammed, I must draw your attention to certain cases. First of all, this is the case of on May 2017 in Jharkhand. Suspected child lifters are there. This was a fake news circulation on WhatsApp that suspected child lifters are carrying sedatives, injections, spray, cotton, and small towel. And it was written they speak Hindi, Bangla, and Malayalam. So we can see that mob lynching is directed towards a group. Social intimidation. There are certain psychological facts that draw people towards mob lynching. These are social intimidation, that is, one group wants to conquer towards another, over the another group. They want to superimpose their views on the other, and they want that their views always prevail. For this, we have also the Khaldanji massacre that happened in Maharashtra, where the upper caste entered the house of lower caste and mob lynched him. Then I must move you to the case of Junaid, which in Delhi on the day of Eid, where he was mob lynched. First of all, he was taunted on being a cow slaughterer. Then on a heated argument on siege, and he was mob lynched. This led to nationwide movement. The title was "Not in My Name." The protest was "Not in My Name," and wherein several people from several states came on the street protesting against mob lynching and cow vigilance.
2 minutes remaining. 2 minutes remaining.
Yes, sir. So now we have Masuka, that is Manav Suraksha Kanun, that is proposed in the parliament. If I give some recommendations, I would say, first of all, mob lynching, we have only some means of conducting mob lynching, that is writing, unlawful assemblies, section 34, 107, 117, 120A, 141, 146, and so on. So first of all, a definition of mob lynching has to be come up with. We have legislation in America, USA. We can draw inspiration from that. Then secondly, we must, the solution for this problem has to come within ourselves. We have to be tolerant. For the legislation purpose, first of all, we need a definition. Then we need rigorous imprisonment, because it is connected with murder, that is section 302. So we can make special punishment for mob lynching to put up a message in society. What we are concerning, mob lynching is braver form of murder and not just simple murder. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Diwakar. And I request Mr. Krishna to kindly present.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, respected jury, and other dignitaries and audience, and my dear fellow panelists. Today, we, through this panel discussion, will be addressing the issue of mob lynching, which is a growing serious problem in our society. I'll start with that one of our Venkataraman Krishna, who was a Nobel Prize winner in 2009 of chemistry, said that India should focus on education and technology, not over who eats what kind of meat. I'll finally say that finally, that means I'll say finally the issue of mob lynching come into the mainstream debates, because mob lynching is not new to our society, which ended in last 2 years. Mob lynching is a problem which has been going on from last many years but not been addressed. But in last 2 years, many incidents that has been taken the form of organized identity thefts has not only created a sense of insecurity in Muslim groups but all over the country. Mob lynching is a form of hate crime which we analyzed the past incident. It has been used as a tool to create a sense of insecurity, or I can say the tension, communal tension among two religious groups in a society. I will say in a civilized society like ours, even one incident of mob lynching not only affect the victim and the family, but question the state and the law order of the society. Our NCRBC, National Crime Bureau, don't have any centralized data on lynching cases in India, so they have hinted in the July that they will be preparing centralized data on lynching. But according to the quick report, I like to say there have been, since 2015, there have been 28 people who have been killed, and 28, on the same hand, 28 families who have been the victim of this mob lynching. This hate crime has not left any part of the India untouched, be it Assam, be it Jammu Kashmir, be it Kerala, be it Rajasthan. And I'll say the world's biggest, strongest country, America, has also faced the problem of mob lynching before a century, and it took more than half the century to tackle this problem. But we should not take it as justification to take time to this issue, because we already know this issue has been growing, so we should address this issue now only. I will not say that if we keep aside the cow violence that has been taken in the last 2 years, lynching is a serious problem before also. There have been many cases in Assam, in state of Jharkhand, where there have been lynching in the name of witch hunting. If I give you a recent example, there was a woman in a Sakandra village, West Bengal. She had been lynched by the mob on the death, lynched to death on the suspicion of being a child trafficker. Another incident, the 17-year-old Muslim boy, Mohammed Sikar, lynched in the being found the girl of another community in Jharkhand. So as this rule of mob is growing, the rule of law is becoming weaker. It's, to be very honest, this is not an issue between for the vulnerable communities or Hindu and Muslim, but it's an issue that we all need to be concerned, because next victim can be me, you, or anyone, because of this barbaric crime. Under the Constitution of India, the state has the responsibility of protecting life of the citizens and the properties of India. But this growing incident of mob violence and mob lynching, and thus, on the same hand, failure of the state to control it, make it an utmost issue to deal with. Now, one of the ministers, Incharge Gangaram Ahir, said that we don't need a separate law to tackle this mob lynching incident, as existing law are sufficient to deal with. But now the question arises, if we have the sufficient law, why we don't have any lynching, why we don't have any conviction in the mob lynching case till now? Why this sufficient laws seems ineffective, and why the term lynching has not been defined in the existing criminal system, which is a crime? Now, all this thing that lynching in society, which has been last 2 years, has taken a such scale that it's very important for state to take an action and define lynching and make a strict and specific law for this crime. If I suggest some pointers for legislation, then I must say that we must define lynching, and I tried to define mob lynching as an angry and violent crowd of people who consist of two or more people who share the intention of causing death of person, or cause death of the person, or causing bodily injury which is likely to cause death of the person, for the presumed offence which has not been legally proved. Even the mob who tries to threaten, oppress, injure, intimidate any person shall be punished. Now, the other points which need to be considered for the legislation are, this mob lynching should be made cognizable and non-bailable offence, because the section in which the mob lynching cases are involved, such as unlawful assemblies and rioting and all, these are cognizable but bailable offences. And other mens rea and the common intention, every member should be presumed till the time they don't prove their innocence in the case. Some of the other provisions that can be included is action against the police and the administration who are responsible for being ineffective for controlling it, because we have the recent example of Panchkula, the violence took in Panchkula and the jar agitation in Haryana, where if the authorities had been serious toward the issue, there has not been so much of violence. So there is in such cases, there is a responsibility or liability that has to be shared with this police and other administrative which are responsible for maintaining law and order. Now, other point I want to say, as we know, justice delayed, justice denied. So I want, if in our future legislation or existing amendments are made, there should be fast track courts to deal with the issue, and so that these cases can be dealt in a fast way, in a time bound rate, because each delay need to be reasoned. If authority or concerned authority are making delay, they have to be reasoned. If they don't find that the reasons are reasonable, they have to make liable for this. And the immediate arrest need to be made. In Junaid case, what happened? The arrest has been made after 6 days. Though the CCTV footage were there, but arrests were made in 6 days, which questioned the police authority. Now, as we told that, according to the India Spend report, 52% of the attacks are being found by rumors. So it's not only about the catching the mob and punishing the people who are with the mob, but also making an investigation who made these rumors. So such provisions should be included in this case. And though NCRB has hinted that they have been making the centralized data on lynching cases, but we need to make sure that they make this central data on lynching. And increasing the quantity of punishment, because the section which has been used presently, like unlawful assembly and rioting and all, this doesn't exceed more than 3 years of punishment, and I believe that punishment need to be increased for in this case as considered the severity of the crime. And there should be the provision of heavy fines should be imposed, because it's not only the victim and the family who suffered physical injuries, but they will face the mental injury which goes very long. Like recently, Usman Ansari was in Jharkhand. Their house was set ablaze, and Junaid's fathers have recently suffered a heart attack after the 4 accused has been bailed. So thinking about in his recent in a news article shared that how he suffers his mental injury and his earning has been stopped because they have been traveling daily to attend this court hearings. And this is not might be the legal provision, but I want to suggest that MP, MLA and the big union ministers should visit the areas, but not into the politics, and share and have a dinner or lunch at the victim's house and show us that they are sharing their concern. But they should talk to the people of the area that this activity needs to be stopped, because this in such activities will help them to restore the peace and bring the unity in the community. And the last, I will suggest that the public this subject law and order comes with the state subject. As we are law students, we know state have the authority to make exclusive authority to make this laws. But I believe if centers work on this will set an example for all of the states, and plus center will set an example to us that they share the consciousness and the will to fight this evil. The Supreme Court has already taken the cognizance and asked the centers, states and centers to act on it. So I believe these activities need to be stopped, because minorities are very important, and minorities and weaker communities, there are very lot of constitutional provisions in our constitution which ask state to protect them. And I believe the state works in them will make them feel that they are equally protected in our state. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Krishna. May I now request Malavika to come on the podium.
to the panel and everyone present here, including the judges. I would like to start out with one point, and that is, right now in India, we have so many sections under the CRPC for conspiracy, for abetment. You have IPC to be read with, but where is the law on mob lynching? And now, and it's very clear that Masuka as an organization has uploaded their document for public consultation. And it can be, and I have actually gone through this document. I have actually gone through all the laws that have also been present in many other jurisdictions. And I am going to put forward 10 proposals which would make, or I hope to make, the law more robust for mob lynching. Now, as Mr. Ashok Pandey in the previous panel had mentioned, that there are 3 requirements when it comes to anything, and that is there should be a process, secondly it should be for the people, and 3, there should be partnerships. So through my 10 points, while I take you through them, you will understand how we can come at this. Now, the main ideology or the question that we have to ask here is, what are the standards for the justifications that people have when they lynch someone? Like, there's a sense of understanding among the lynchers, if you notice, that what they're doing requires no regret, and what they're doing is correct. Now, to look into these psychological aspects of lynching, is it enough to just have police officers? Is it just enough to have a designated judge? So, I will take you through my proposal right now. And it's subdivided into 10 parts, and starting with the preamble. Now, when I go into the preamble of a legislation, I just need to mention one incident, and that was the Kerlanji massacre in 2006. It is very obvious that a mob of at least 50 villagers barged into the house of the victim, not only beating them, but parading them naked. Now, what does a preamble stand for in a legislation? And especially a mob lynching preamble, it has to look into 3 criteria. 1, it has to look at the purpose of it. It has to be read with Article 25 and Article 15 of the Constitution, because they are in question right here. We are looking at a diverse nation, and we have to read it with the Constitution. Secondly, what are we looking at when we look at the purpose? We have to not only punish these lynchers, we have to protect and rehabilitate these victims. That is the main purpose that we're looking for. Secondly, we have to look at equal protection, and that is the main problem here. You, for example, taking a case of a Dalit woman who's being lynched and a normal woman who's being lynched. Normal in the sense who's not Dalit is what I'm trying to say. I don't mean any insult or anything. So if you take a case like that, sometimes it might happen that the law enforcement might not exactly go and help out the Dalit woman. I mean, if you can clearly see, even in this massacre here, there was a question of their minority status. Now, thirdly, we have to look at expediency. If courts and the officers cannot do their duty fast, then we will not get anywhere. Now, secondly, we look at the preliminary, and that is the name of the act and the extent of the act. Now, we cannot keep, I personally think we should not keep the name of the act with the word mob, and frankly, the act just sounds perfect right now as it is. That is Prevention of Lynching Act, because that is the purpose, to prevent it. And the extension, as it can be seen in many legislations in India, should extend to the whole of India except Jammu and Kashmir because of, the certain reasons. Now, when we look at the definitions, I only have 4 important definitions which have to be considered as per my proposal. One is the definition of lynching. Now, one of the inspirations I have drawn for the definition of lynching comes from the Dyer anti-lynching bill in 1922 there in the US. And that clearly stated that a mob, and this is my version of it, since it's a proposal, that is a mob acting with the intention of injuring or depriving any person of his life without the authority of law as a punishment for or to prevent the commission of some actual or supposed public offense. Here we cover everything. The mob might actually think that it's an offense, public offense. That's why we have the word supposed. You cannot do anything without the authority of law, and clearly you have to injure or deprive someone of their life. Now moving on to what a mob is, there's no debate here. A mob is a group of 2 or more persons with the intention of lynching as defined above. Now, when we look at the word victim, we can read it to take certain words of the CRPC section 2WA, which is any person who has suffered any loss or injury. But with respect to lynching, we can say anything that may result in bodily, mental, psychological or monetary harm, because these are the four elements which a victim will suffer. Now we are going into one of the main proposals that I want to put forward, and that is a protection officer. And I feel that a protection officer, if you also have come across the same in Prevention of the Domestic Violence Act, you can see that there are protection officers there too.
2 minutes remaining.
Okay. Personally, I think 5 minutes is too less, but I will keep it very short now. Now, when we look at the duty of a protection officer, we have to look at its rank first. One cannot be below the rank of a sub-inspector. But since we have to look at districts and sub-districts, we have to work at a grassroots level. We cannot have a central sort of framework for this, because all the acts of lynching happen in places where you don't know it's happening. So it cannot be below the rank of inspector of police. Secondly, there has to be a reporting duty. Now, obviously, if a person feels that there is an act of lynching that is coming up, he should go and report it to the police office nearby, and the police office has to specifically tell the protection officer. That way, there is a sort of robust mechanism. There is one designated officer under the Act. Now, if you look at Section 4 of the Domestic Violence Act, sometimes people have this apprehension that when they go and tell a police officer about some incident, that they'll also be put in jail. And this is a very uneducated way of thinking, and it's not their fault. So there should be some sort of exclusion of liability or some sort of clause like that, so that they know that they will not be subject to any civil or criminal liability for going in good faith and giving the information. Now, the functions of the protection officers, as very clearly are: identification, prevention, reporting, assisting the district magistrate, which I'm going to propose, and the vigilance committee, which I want to propose. Now, let me just directly move on to the vigilance committee, which is my main proposal here, and because of lack of time. Now, I feel every state should have a vigilance committee, one at a district level, two at a sub-district level. Now, I want to state out very clearly here that I don't want to give the vigilance committee any power to give an order. That is not happening. That is with the district magistrate. And if you're going to court, you're going to go to a designated judge. As simple as that. But in a district, the composition of the committee would be the district magistrate as a chairman, so that there is a link between all three. And this is what I mean by partnership. Second, 2 nominated persons belonging to SC or ST by the district magistrate, 2 social workers nominated. And this is one thing which I haven't found in many acts. I feel that if a recognized and respected psychiatrist is also put on board, then you can actually look into the socio-psychological aspects behind cases of lynching. And then you have the similar composition for the sub-district, excluding the psychiatrist, because I feel he or she should only be there at the district level. Now, the functions are to advise the district magistrate, provide social economic rehabilitation, take cognizance of all offences, and the most important, provide legal services to these victims. So the protection officer will take a case that is reported to him, go to the vigilance committee, who will provide legal services, and then will be taken to the designated judge for people who don't want to go directly. Now, one of the main functions I feel a vigilance committee, if it comes up, can do is to publish reports in a bi-monthly fashion in public newspapers. See, lynching right now in India, it's coming up. It's becoming a trend. We don't want to make it a habit. Like, in the beginning, rape was a trend. Then it turned into a habit. And now, like, if you can see that in many states, you have the rape culture. It's there. Lynching is still in its preliminary stages. We can chop off the snake before it bites you. I think they're saying something like that. But so I feel that if we publish these reports in a bi-monthly fashion, then the act would spread awareness among the population, thus inducing people to report to the protection officer of any possible acts of lynching. And this is where the psychologist can also play a role, because he can write about how these socio-psychological aspects should not be adhered to. Now, moving on, this is it. There will be a district magistrate to carry out the functions as he is supposed to. That is, give administrative orders to curb any sort of problems and give compensation. there is a duty of the prevention of lynching, which I don't want to go into. Now, I just want to go into one thing, and that is the dereliction of duty, as I had also read in the proposal. Now, it is very important and very essential and I feel that the police officer should be fined more and charged more because he has the most responsibility out of all this. And it is very important because let's say that this lynching case happened in an industry. Okay. And there was a mob of lynchers who went and lynched one of the management people. Now the laws for labor laws are so robust, as you can see in 2012 it actually happened that there was a lynching of Maruti Suzuki's HR manager and the police arrested all 148 workers and charged them all with murder. If something like this were to happen in an industry, you know that they'll be charged with murder, as you can see. But what about the other cases, the minority cases, the cases of religion, the cases of beef, and these are not the only things we have to think of. I mean, if you think about it, recently Maharashtra had to bring up the black magic act. I mean, someone was lynched on that basis. So you never know the kind of reasons people have to lynch someone. Now further.
Thank you, Malavika. We have other panelists also.
I'm so sorry. Okay, I'm done. I just want to conclude this one thing. And that is, you know, when it comes to a designated judge, it is only good for one purpose, and that is expediency and speedy trials. If you can see, Sri John Sebastian has been appointed in Kerala High Court for cases of atrocities, sexual violence against women and children. And the number of cases that I'm personally coming from Trivandrum, and I've seen him work in his court, and I've seen how fast it takes, and all the cases have such a short duration. And that is how it's supposed to work at a district magistrate. Now, I have a hard copy of my proposal if you want to read it, since I can't speak more. But thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Malavika. Now may I please request Ms. Shiwani to kindly present her views.
I quote, "For no particular reason he had the blue cow tattooed on his right shoulder. He would have been killed in the riots yesterday, but they were good people. Seeing a cow, they let him go." Unquote. I stand here to present before you a law to protect the nation from killing each other, one belief at a time. In the light of rapidly increasing number of atrocities committed by the mobs, which is creating a climate of hostility in the country and alienating the minority community within the country in the name of religious sentiments or otherwise, some laws, some policies that could be, there are some policies that could be enacted to control the crowd from taking law into their hands. One of the most important features of democracy is to be able to express oneself freely, and the obligation to protect the life and security of the citizen is the fountainhead of the Constitution. Mob lynching or targeted violence against individuals or groups on the basis of their religion or caste strikes at the heart of the constitutional pact between Indian states and its citizens. I will begin by telling you why it is important to know what entails a mob lynching. I seek to explain the narrowed down definition of mob lynching in order to make it probable for us to identify what it entails and thus work towards better approach in curbing it. Mob essentially is an assembly of two or more people gathered in order to inflict injury upon anyone driven by religious beliefs, sentiments, or otherwise. Lynching is to kill somebody or to attempt to kill or to injure someone gravely or otherwise, or to commit any act of violence as an extrajudicial punishment given by people driven by religious or cultural sentiments. Now, the punishment for mob lynching is definitely one of the most important things that we need to keep in mind, because unless laws are strict, people won't bother following. Number one, any person known to be involved in meeting or association that essentially plans to inflict injury of any kind to any person shall face imprisonment up to 3 years and a fine of ₹50,000. Number two, whoever commits an act of lynching wherein the victim is hurt shall face imprisonment up to 7 years and a fine of ₹1 lakh. The victim is gravely hurt shall face imprisonment up to 12 years and a rupees of 5 lakhs. The victim is declared dead shall face imprisonment and a fine of rupees, life imprisonment and a fine of rupees 10 lakhs. Cyber lynching. Any person known to promote hatred or incite through statements or activities on social media to assemble or bring bodily harm upon a person based on discrimination of different caste, community or religion shall face imprisonment up to 2 years and a fine of rupees 20,000. Because of the anonymity of the crimes against crime under cyber lynching, it is very important that proper investigation procedures are followed in crimes like these. Also, because of the essence of democracy is to provide the right to provide to citizens their right to express, and also at the same time to limit it to a certain extent, we need to keep in mind that extremism of any sort is curbed, because it is extremism that essentially makes us commit crimes or otherwise, right? The thin line between hate crime and protected speech has to be established, right? Now, the duties of a police officer in order to prevent mob lynching. It is the duty of the police officer to supervise the maintenance of law and order in the areas that come under his jurisdiction. I say this because, ladies and gentlemen, many a time we see that though the police inspector has power vested in him to control the mobs, but because of the beliefs that are his personal beliefs, because he is driven by those personal beliefs, probably many a times his ideologies and sentiments are taken, he does not perform as much as he should have because of this drive of his own personal ideology. So we need to have strict laws to control that, so that have biasness towards any side. So in order to curb that, punishment for the police officer has to be imprisonment for 6 years along with a fine of 50,000. I also want to talk about including a special investigation team for mob lynching, because in order to deal with again the anonymity of the situation and to collect evidence as such that may be the necessity of the prosecution of the person committing the offense against this act, a special team has to be established, right? Now I want to talk about the right of victims and witness during the trial, right? The basic rights that are supposed to be given to a victim, that is, he should be aware of his any notice of the proceedings of the court, and he should be, very important, is entitled to receive free legal aid. Now, what happens during mob lynching is the social control that is taken up by the people in order to shut down any person's activity, is that the entire society or neighborhood that you're living in gets against you, right? And nobody is ready to help you out and sort of provide any assistance to you. In that case, it is the duty of the legal officers to provide a free legal aid, okay? Now, a very important part of my policy is the burden of proof must lie on the defendant and not the victim. Taking inspiration from the Dowry Prohibition Act 1961, the burden of proving that the person arrested has committed offence mentioned above shall be on him, given how grave this situation is. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we must understand that we are here to discuss solution to control a very grave issue. Because if anything at all is making people come out of their houses and to go on streets and protest by campaigning in the name of not in my name, if anything at all is posing a threat to minorities, so much so that they can't even travel safely in railways, which is supposed to be one of the most used transportation system. If anything at all is making an entire community tie a black band in their arm while they're observing Ramzan, if anything at all is making us term students who are questioning the government, which by the way is a part of democracy, and we are terming them as anti-nationalists, if we are and we are making them scared of their own safety in their own campuses, I think we as the bodies to maintain law and order are probably failing somewhere.
1 minute remaining.
Thank you, Shiwani. I now request Mr. Diwakar to ask a question from Mr. Krishna.
I have one question, each for Malavika and Shiwani. The question is same. That is, both of you have talked about punishing the police officers for not preventing any case of mob lynching. Now, first of all, my view is that it is the duty on us not to commit any crime and not on the police officers or any other security officer to prevent it. And in this view, in this thing, I must take your attention to the very recent case wherein a person brought a knife in the aeroplane and he was held liable, not the security guards, because it is very, very logical not to punish the guards but to punish the offender. Now, the second point is you have talked about punishing the police officers with imprisonment and with fine. So if you are going to send them into the prison, who is going to replace the officer on the duty? And second thing is the fine, very heavy fine. So if by chance there is a case of mob lynching, they may not show it in the reports to safeguard themselves and not to be dismissed. Furthermore, if you are going to send the police officers into the prison, how are their families going to survive? Because they are not earning very much. That is very clear to us. They are very reluctant. Also in administrating cases of rape. Now, second question that is to Ms. Malavika. That is, you have talked about publishing public reports on mob lynching on weekly basis, by monthly basis. So I must draw your attention to the point that there are public reports on crime. We have, in fact, not on monthly basis, we have daily newspapers reporting murder, rape, dacoity, robbery. But still there are some psychological things that do not change. We are like, we don't care. This is to happen, so this is going to happen. So what can be done to promote those psychological changes? Because it is growing and we can stop it here. Secondly, that is protection officers or the protection committee. So it is saying that if we fall on 100, that is the police helpline, they do not usually pick it up, and if we see that even if they pick it up and we have these protection officers and protection vigilant committees, they may delegate the case to them. They may say that we are not acting, we have a higher authority for this case. So how are we going to tackle that time loss? Because in these cases, time is very essential. And furthermore, it is very difficult to predict mob lynching. It happens on the spot, like road rage. Call the police station. Okay, they usually don't pick it up. And even if they do, they may say that we have higher authority, we have vigilant committees, please call them up. We are not going to take this case. We have these specialized officers. So how are we going to tackle this time lapse? These are the two questions. Thanks.
I now request Mr. Krishna to ask a question from Ms. Malavika.
Thank you. I'd like to ask the one thing that you suggested, a lot of procedural things. That a lot of we know how a common person or a people to the legal section will again get into trapped in this procedural thing, and again setting up the protection officer, and will be giving chance to the police officer and other authorities who are already there to maintain the law and order. So don't you think that creating another this procedural trap will be affecting the common person who don't know such things about law and will be get trapped, and again he will be facing a delay in getting justice? So this is the question to both the ma'am who suggested a lot of processing. So I suggested I pointed out like little bit of I summed up those things. So I would like to get the answer of this question.
Sorry, Krishna, I don't think Shiwani suggested that. So I'm a little confused. She did suggest her. So since you asked for both, I'm a little confused. She did suggest, right? So you want to ask us? She did suggest.
No, this is fine, sir.
Am I right, Shiwani? I'll be cut. Okay, thanks.
I request Ms. Malavika to ask a question from Ms. Shiwani.
I would just like to ask one basic thing, and that is your definition of mob lynching. I actually want to know, like, if you restrict everything to legal, cultural, and I think you mentioned the word religious. Yeah. So, how do we tackle cases that fall out of it? What do you think? Like, since this is a proposal and a discussion, what do you think we can put? Like, is there a blanket word we can use? Is there any way we can add the other acts that may fall out of it? That's
I request Ms. Shiwani to ask a question.
Okay. Sir, in your speech, you defined the mob lynching. You focused on why mob lynching has to be defined. Sir, I'd like to know what are some of the suggestions that you want to give to tackle this, because the most of your speech that I heard was about why the definition is very important. The definition is certainly important. I totally agree with that. But I also want to know what are your suggestions on how to tackle this.
Now I request the panelists to sum up their cases. Diwakar.
I would like to answer your question, Mr. Vinod. See, according to me, mob lynching is just a different name of committing crime, because in every case of mob lynching, we see murders, riots, unlawful assemblies, conspiracies, all that. So I think mob lynching is just another name given to these crimes. So to tackle these, I think mob lynching is a cumulative offense of all these crimes. So cumulative definition must be given. That is the solution, I think.
okay. So I got a lot of questions from you. So I'll try to address as much as I can. So you had mentioned the words, the duty is on us. Like, why do we have to put dereliction as a whole criteria in this? Now, to put it very simply and logically, if the duty is just on us to do everything, why do we even need law enforcement? As simple as that, one. Secondly, so many acts have different sort of officers that they have under it. For example, some acts like the DV Act has a protection officer which carries out the functions under the act. And then you have CRPC where you have a variety of officers carrying out the act. Now, if they don't carry out their duty, there has to be some sort of penalty. The penalty cannot on the accused. Cannot only be, the burden cannot only be on the victim. You have to imprison and fine those law enforcement agencies who cannot perform their functions. Now you asked a question, who will replace them? if they go to jail? See, this is a very tough question to answer. I hope the police reforms actually make provisions for better induction of police officers. And further, I feel with the, in fact, if something like this happens, the other police officers, look at the implications on the other police officers. They will be at a higher moral obligation to do their duty better. Like, they might even get scared. And secondly, I think the rate of recruitment will go high. So, if you just look at it, the way officers are treated in India and officers are treated abroad, do you see the sense of respect and the sort of fear that a US officer can entail when he stops a car and asks for a fine? I've personally seen cases where I recently went to Chennai and I made the mistake of thinking that it was a normal jeep, and because my legs were paining and I had walked so much, I sat inside. I made such a big mistake. The police officer, he came and then he told me, why don't you respect us? And I, as a law student, was out of words for this. I apologized, telling him that I was very mistaken and very tired. But this is how it is. And he told me one thing. He said the media is out to report cases where the citizens are not respecting the police officers. So if you look at it, a degree of responsibility is higher when you imprison or fine these legal officers. Secondly, they also have a duty as much as we have a duty. If they are not going to fulfill their duty, their family will suffer. If I go and murder someone, my family will suffer. Everyone has a duty on themselves to perform the actions which are not against the state or against any individual. Now, I think you had also mentioned something about time limitation.
Time lapse.
The time lapse. Okay. Now, see, this is also a duty incumbent on the police officers. Now, many of the cases of lynching, as you can see, they happen in very small towns. And so when they go to their local authorities and when they give a file for an FIR, we have to make sure that within the legislation, the CRPC is also protected. Like, for example, we have to make sure that the procedure for FIRs under 154 are also covered, and this is not something which they have to do because there is a mob lynching act or any lynching act. This is something that they are inherently supposed to do. Now, I propose that once they do this, let's have a protection officer actually going to each place and recording it for better transparency. Now, regarding the time lapse, if they are not picking their phones and they're not doing their duty, you have, as a citizen, a moral obligation to report this, to report the inefficiency of the law enforcement. Now, I only got those many questions, and I think you asked me a question.
On family, when the officers would go to jail,
See,
and when they would come out, what force they would do?
See, when an officer, I personally think when an officer is signing up for duty, it is his duty to perform his functions. Like sometimes, it is his duty to perform the functions and take care of his family. He's doing this for a reason. And if he does not perform it, his family have to ultimately suffer. There is no concept of rehabilitation that can come here. Rehabilitation goes to victims, not to people who breach their duty. And that is what you have to understand.
To prison. And if you put a police officer into prison, you are actually removing him from his duty.
Okay, I'll just put it very simply. Let's say you're a police officer and you breach your duty. You're supposed to file a case and you're not filing it. Okay, and someone is dying because of you. Isn't it a breach of duty? Aren't you not performing the procedure under 154? There has to be action taken against you, because you can't let this go because you will do this with someone else. When action is taken under this act, I specifically think that he should be imprisoned or fined or both. This is there in many legislations. So you may not always go to jail. See, it's a degree of the lapse of duty that you have to look at. So there may be cases when he won't go to jail either. So let's hope that he does his duty. And I'd like to end it there. And I think you asked me a question on why. Okay, the procedural aspects of it. So, I'll tell you something. If you leave all the powers to just the police officers and not bring about any other entities, like for example a designated judge or district magistrate or a vigilance committee or anything else we propose, then you know what will happen? There will be potential abuse of power, and there is a very generic lynching legislation may not be enough. We cannot keep this generic. We have to completely curb it right now. So that is why when it comes to procedures, we have to hope that that they do their duty. See, as legislators, we make the law. But as performers as duty holders, it is upon them to perform the same. And let's hope that we make several other entities to do the same. Thank you. I hope I covered it up. Thank you.
Sir, you asked me the same question that you asked ma'am, and ma'am, I'm very glad that you answered it very well. I'd just like to add that when I was talking about the duties of the police officers, I mentioned certain duties like they have to identify the patterns and they have to keep in mind that they're not biased. So if you are going against your duty, it is certain that there are going to be repercussions, right? So for those repercussions are supposed to be something that law can put in their law has in hand, that is putting them in jail or fining them something, right? So all I'm trying to say very simply is, if you have signed up for your duty and you're not performing it, there are going to be repercussions. That is why you are supposed to be fined or imprisoned, or if you have a family and you need to take care of them, then not rescheduled. Ma'am asked me if my if there has to be a blanket on the difference between like the religious and cultural mob lynching and otherwise. No, ma'am. When I was ending my speech, I also spoke about how how terms like how branding students as anti-nationalists, how the how branding students like anti-nationalists also is a form of mob lynching. So no, there doesn't have to be a blanket as to separate these things. They all should be covered in the same form. I hope I have.
Hello everyone. Thank you for your answers for the fellow panelists. Now, with my ending speech, I'll say that Saeed Arif, we might start from Muhammad Iqbal, but I'll like to mention Saeed Arif, who's been very famous case of mob lynching of Nagaland. If you guys remember, it was around 50s. Saeed Arif, Muhammad Iqbal, Junaid, Usman Ansari, and many other victims are of this hate crime. And this hate crime is not on individual. We need to understand this. Hate crime is on humanity and the constitutional principle and values we cherish as a citizen. Now the attacks which has been taken as a cow violence we call is not, it doesn't show the concern for cow or love for cow. It is religious bigotry at its worst form. And I read many of the incidents shared by the mob victims, and I felt that one was the Usman Ansari, whose house was set ablaze and whose family had to leave the village. But in the interview he said that he still want to return that village and want to, which he calls his home. I feel sorry that we are moving, if this thing happens, we are moving in a very sorry state of for the society. And I'd like to say that my legislation which I proposed, I believe that I pointed out most of the important things. So due to the time issues, I have to sum up, but I'd like to present my hard copy to the jury. And I'll say that remarks and the big ministers like PM and other ministers and protests not be going to help us in longer run, because I know this anti-social elements who are being mindless bigotry don't understand the value of these constitutional principles and the language of peace. It's a time that the state should act, and like when they sit in the parliament, they have to sit in a constructive manner and make the utilize of the time which they are spending in the parliament, and need to act and bring a strict law against this evil, and assure these minorities that they are with them. There is the state, there is the rule of
law which is there to protect them equally. And at the same time, to be very honest to myself, and I believe we all know that law can't cure this all completely. We need to understand this thing individually and understand which is the points which are coming last 2 years, the religious violence which has taken place. I think that we need to understand our religious property. Religion is a path to be here to unite one's soul to the God. So if we continue to be religious bigotry, it will take us far away from the God. So at the last, it's a time that we should stand against mob rule, who understands no rule, no logic, no religion, and we can't afford to lose more lives. And this mob who comes in large number and lynch not only human beings but our constitutional principles of equality, fraternal, secularism, democracy, which we are proud of as a country. And I speak with the Martin Luther King, a well-known leader of civil rights movement in America. That it may be true that the law cannot make a man love me, but it can keep him away from lynching me. And I think it's pretty important. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. It was an excellent debate, and I hope the jury members will reach a well-informed conclusion soon. The results will be declared after the final panel. Now, I'd like to invite on stage Mr. Tehseen Poonawalla, sir, to kindly address the gathering.
First of all, thank you very much for having me here to the Indian National Bar Association. And I did not know I had to speak. Had I known, I would have prepared better and come, but thank you so much. And with talent like this, it makes it difficult and makes your task even more, makes you even more conscious and your task even more challenging. So I'm very happy that I'm here today in your midst and we're discussing mob lynching. It's an idea, it's a subject that is very close to my heart. And I'm very fortunate to be joined by Deepali, Anas and Muzakkir, who've also helped me in my Supreme Court petition against cow vigilantism and also drafting the law of Masuka, which 10 political parties, most of them lost. But we'll come to that later. When I heard all of you all speak, you in particular, a lot of this mob lynching has centered around the cow vigilantism. And that is true. A lot of it has got media attention. But mob violence is not just about cows. I think Shiwani, you made that point. Or you made the point. Yeah, Shiwani, you made that point. In Uttar Pradesh, a woman was lynched recently because she was called a witch. We come back from Jharkhand about a week ago, where another set of women were lynched because a rumor was spread that they are witches. The fact of the matter is, in Delhi, there's a gentleman called Ravindra, a fan of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, a Swachh Bharat fan. He was lynched because he told a group of people, do not urinate here, go to the Shauchalaya. Swachh Bharat is going on here and urinate there. They just lynched him. The fact of the matter is, a mob has no conscience, a mob has no morality. Yes, there are incidences of cow, on which I am in the Honorable Supreme Court, and those are very serious incidences. There is a matter of fate, there's a matter of freedom of choice, choice to eat what you like, choice to be with who you want, and there comes in the Romeo squads that now decide to enter your house and see who you're with, which woman you're with, which man you're with, why you're with them, and the state decides. And at some point, we need to stand up and tell the government and tell the state that this is not your duty. What's in my fridge, who's in my bedroom, who's in my kitchen is not the government, is not the duty of the government. And therein was the idea of Masuka born. When we went to the Supreme Court and the Honorable Supreme Court served a notice to the central government and initially 6 state governments, we got back and we wondered what more could we do. And in Kanhaiya, you called them very famously, you said that people are termed anti-national. You said people are very famously termed anti-national, so Kanhaiya called me. And a couple of us got together and we said, what more can we as Young India do to ensure that this kind of barbaric acts do not happen? So how do you get into mob lynching and how do you understand it? To understand this, you need to understand the mindset from where this comes. So we started studying cases of mob violence. You spoke about Martin Luther King in America last. Mob lynching started in around the 14th century in Europe, where women were termed witches by the church and burnt, stoned, burned. No justice was ever given to them. This then moved on into the 18th century in the United States of America, where black men predominantly were lynched. And there were also brown men and other races, but the black men predominantly were lynched. Further research led us to believe, and these are with results, that every time the economy starts falling down, and I believe the next debate is on the economy, every time the economy starts slowing down, incidences of mob violence directly and proportionally rise. And there is no counter argument to that. Worldwide, the cases we've studied have seen everywhere where the GDP and the economy has fallen, whether it was Europe, the America, to 1920, 22 when they had the Great Depression, to India today where the economy started tanking, cases of mob violence increases. The next thing we saw was the average age of the people indulging in this mob violence was about 25 to 45. Which means young India, which the Prime Minister speaks very passionately about, new India, which he speaks very, very passionately about, is indulging in the most barbaric, gruesome acts restricted to the 14th century, 18th century. They're doing this in 21st century India. What's worst is they're filming these acts on new generation technology, their iPhones, their Samsungs, their 3G, their 4G. And the audacity to get away with it. One of you all spoke about the rumor mongering in social media, and the audacity to get away with it. Somewhere down the line, there's a pride that they've committed this heinous act. Somewhere down the line, there is confidence that they're getting away with it. So why is there the confidence that they're getting away with it? So we went down to that aspect. One, the economy is tanking. Two, young India is indulging in it. Three, there's a confidence that they're getting away with it. So when I sat with Anas and Deepali, and of course the senior lawyers, which included Sanjay Hegdeji and Kapil Sibal and other luminaries, KT Tulsi is coming in, he's gone through our draft law. What we realized is both the IPC and the CRPC had no definition for mob lynching. There's absolutely no definition. So when you do not have a definition for a crime, the possibility of getting convicted in it is very less. So the first thing we decided is let's start defining what lynching is and what constitutes mob violence. That's the legal part. Then there was the political part to it. And why I don't want to take political sides, and I'm very clear on my political beliefs, and I must add out here a caveat, I'm very happy to see young people like you take the stand that you all have done, because seriously, at some point you believe, are we really the nation that we are becoming? I mean, you see young people like you, that makes me very proud. But coming back to the political beliefs, the Honorable Prime Minister first spoke about mob lynching when Dalits were whipped in Gujarat, Una. So Jignesh, who's one of the founding members of the Masuka, told me this, he told Kanaiya and me this. He said, what did the Prime Minister say? The Prime Minister said, Unko mat maro, mujhe maro. I'm quoting the Prime Minister. He said, Unko mat maro, mujhe maro. Now we are a democracy. You all are law students, or most of you all. We are in association that is opposite the Supreme Court. The Prime Minister is supposed to uphold our constitution, says, Unko mat maro, mujhe maro. So he tells people, don't commit this illegal act, commit the illegal act of hitting me. Bhai, aapko kyun mare? Jo maar raha hai, unko jail mein dalo. This is what the Prime Minister does. This gives you defense for getting away with bigotry. When was the second time the Prime Minister reacted? He reacted when the entire international media, New York Times, Washington Post, started criticizing him. So he goes to Gandhiji's ashram, Sabarmati, and speaks about violence, but he doesn't speak about human beings being killed. He speaks about cows, more importantly. He says about what is cow seva. He doesn't say there's wrong human beings are killed. He says Gaur ki seva is killed. Again, there's a political shielding to it. Many on social media, somebody spoke about social media lynching. I don't know which of you two pretty girls did, but you did, yes. So they spoke about social media lynching. So the Prime Minister, very often social media covers up what the Prime Minister says and says, you know, the Prime Minister is amazing, he spoke about this. But the Prime Minister did not speak about the victims. He did not say that these victims need to get justice. He said that there must be the Home Ministry must make a circular of all these people who are indulging in these acts, a dossier, to quote the Prime Minister, and this dossier should reach the Union Home Ministry. Great words, except that they're all words, all talk, no action. Nothing happens beyond that. The Prime Minister then goes to Israel. Meets a gentleman called Moshe, a young kid called Moshe. International media, Al Jazeera, CNN, BBC, Tel Aviv television, the Prime Minister meets Moshe, pats him. Of course he should meet Moshe. Moshe was a victim of the most barbaric terrorist act on the soil of India. I spoke about Ravindra. He stays in Delhi. Swachh Bharat fan. Did the Prime Minister meet his family? I didn't speak about Najib. Najib was lynched from the JNU campus. One of you all spoke about anti-nationals. My friend Kanaya has often called that. Najib was lynched from there. Did the Prime Minister meet his mom? His mom started protesting. The Delhi police dragged her away. Dragged a victim of lynching, the mother of the victim of lynching. The Prime Minister never spoke about Najib. It took him 5 minutes to tweet to Nitish Kumar when the government broke. 5 minutes. He's still not spoken on a number of issues. And when he speaks, he doesn't speak what needs to be spoken. Then there is another aspect to it. A union minister, Mahesh Sharma, goes to the house of a gentleman whose son is serving in the Indian Air Force, Akhlaq's house. The first suspicion comes on Akhlaq. Did he have beef in his fridge? Even if Akhlaq had beef in his fridge, nobody had a right to enter his house, check his kitchen, pull out what the meat was, and kill Akhlaq. And the forensic examination was not on how Akhlaq was dead, was on what the meat was. That is where in law you get away. And what does the union minister do? The union minister drapes a tricolor on the murderers of Akhlaq. So you have a legal lacuna which examines, which does not have a definition for mob, does not have a definition for lynching, does not have guidelines on how these cases should be investigated. It investigates the meat rather than the murder, which is as ridiculous. And you have the Prime Minister saying, don't kill them, kill me, encouraging a union minister to drape tricolors, and lying on the floor of the house when Naqvi lied on the floor of the Rajya Sabha in the case of Pehlu Khan. So you have a double lacuna here. You have a political leadership that's protecting these vigilante acts, and you have a legal lacuna which absolutely does not give you any justice or chance for justice. How does this work practically? So last week we met Pehlu Khan's family. They came over, we met them. And pardon me because I'm criticizing the Rajasthan High Court, but I take absolute responsibility for it. The Honorable, and I believe that democracy does allow me the right to criticize judgments. I'm not criticizing the judge, I'm criticizing the judgment. The Honorable Rajasthan High Court, in the judgment of Pehlu Khan's killers, who've been identified on camera, says in the first paragraph that these guys were not killing Pehlu Khan, they were stopping the fight. In the second paragraph of the same bail order, the Honorable Rajasthan High Court says, they were on another chalk. It's the same bail order. Pehlu Khan tells us in the media, that as soon as those 7 victims got, those 7 accused got bail, they come out of the Rajasthan High Court and in the premises of the Rajasthan High Court, tell Pehlu Khan's family that we will do the same, you'll meet the same fate that your fathers met if you continue to come here. The police investigating Pehlu Khan murder tell his family that you cannot come to Rajasthan because these people will lynch you. Please come late night. We can't guarantee your safety. These are things on record. That's where we came to the Witness Protection Act, where we came to for how the police officer must conduct his investigation in Masuka. Because none of these provisions are there on what action do you take against a police officer who tells the victim that, listen, do not come here during the day, come at night, I cannot guarantee your safety. Not one day have the 13 accused, there are 15 accused in Pehlu Khan's case, not one day have the 13 accused gone to jail. The 6 were absconding, they've now got bail. The 7 who were arrested got bail immediately. From the trial court, they got bail in the High Court. And I told you the High Court judgment. We discussed Akhlaq's case. There is Junaid. Somebody mentioned his father. Suffered another cardiac arrest. When you lynch a person, you don't lynch that man, you lynch the entire family. Junaid's on the street, Najib is on the street, Pehlu Khan's on the street, Ravindra's on the street. Their families. They're all dead, their families on the street. One was a rickshaw puller, one was a dairy farmer, the other was a cattle transporter. They're all on the street. That's why we came in Masuka with the rehabilitation cost, that minimum compensation of 25 lakhs must be given to somebody who's lynched and injured and can go further. What happens in the case of Ravindra? Forget other cases, because you might say I'm making this communal. So let's leave the Hindu-Muslim issue. Ravindra, 1 lakh rupees is given to Ravindra. How does a rickshaw driver, I'm saying 3 lakh rupees is given, how does a rickshaw driver lynched survive in a city like Delhi, his entire family, he's got a wife, 2 kids, and parents to take care of, with 3 lakh rupees? And the 3 lakhs is not yet given to him. 1 lakh is given, 2 lakhs has to come. How does he survive? Shouldn't there be a minimum compensation? That's another aspect that Masuka looks into. Then there was this entire debate out here on the police and their duties. And in Masuka we proposed that the local officer, the local SHO, must be held responsible wherever mob violence happens. We've also proposed that the local officer be subjected to a magistrate inquiry, ASAP. He be suspended from duty till the magistrate inquiry, time-bound magistrate inquiry gets done. If he's not guilty or she's not guilty, they come back on duty. If they're guilty, they go to jail. I'll come to your question later, what happens to their family, but let's first speak about this. The reason we proposed this, and Anas and I had severe debates on this, and the police force is extremely unhappy with us when we suggested this, is simply because we don't believe that 300 people, 400 people can gather with swords, with knives, to check which of you is wearing what clothes, or is with who in a bedroom, or is eating what meat, enter your house and the police not know about it. That's not possible. If that is happening, the police is anyways incompetent and has no intelligence of what's happening on the ground. You mentioned the case of road rage. You did. Yes, there could be mob violence and road rage. That's true. Which is why we subject the police to a district magistrate inquiry. That if there's a road rage case which has happened, which has caused an issue and the police was far away, or even in a case which has happened practically in Delhi, on the borders of Delhi and Gurgaon, or Delhi and Noida, I'm not sure which border it was, where people were stealing electricity. So the electricity officials took 1-2 constables and went there. The mob out there lynched the police, surrounded the police, and further police had to come to rescue. They couldn't rescue the woman officer because the crowd outnumbered the police and they didn't have enough weapons and all of that. So in a case like that, there's no straitjacket that fits all. But in a case like that, of course, the police is not responsible and they can go back to doing their duty. But why should there not be a district magistrate overseeing this? Then again, why should a police not investigate it? Because the police tend to save the police rather than have sympathy for the victim. So why not have a district magistrate? And I think, Anas, you proposed a district magistrate of not less than 7 years experience, right? So it's not just a new district magistrate who comes on board, but a district magistrate or a lawyer, a judge who's had some sort of experience in judicial activism and judicial implementing the law. You now come to the next aspect of Masuka. That we've termed it as a non-bailable offense and life imprisonment. Well, the fact of the matter is, when you take somebody's life, as I said earlier, the case of Ravindra, case of Pehlu Khan, Junaid, Najib, it's not one life that you're taking. You're taking a number of lives. The entire family is lynched. There is an entire psychological trauma that the family undergoes. There is entire victimization that the family undergoes, and to top it in India, there is victim shaming. For example, in the case of Akhlaq, there was a definite case made that wo to gosht kha raha tha gai ka. Wo kha raha tha. This was in the bindings of Uttar Pradesh. It doesn't sound very sophisticated when I say it opposite the Honorable Supreme Court, but in the UP election, this was what was said. There is a whisper campaign that starts. You start shaming the victim. In the case of Pehlu Khan, his family started being shamed, but he was smuggling cow. Even if you're smuggling, you don't have the right to take his life. But how does the law work? Pehlu Khan buys cow. He's a cattle trader. He buys cow from a Rajasthan government fair. A milking cow, because he's a cattle trader / dairy farmer. A milking cow. He tells the mob it's a milking cow. The mob tells him they're affiliated to a right-wing organization. यहाँ पर ये नहीं चलेगा. आपके पास कोई भी कागज हो. The police do not intervene. They beat him up. But what makes the case unique is Pehlu Khan's driver is a Hindu. The Hindu driver is not lynched. I think day before yesterday, Indian Express or Hindu, one of the newspapers, carried that he is now transporting vegetables, no longer doing animals. So there is a clear intent behind this crime. And when you make laws, you have to see what the intent is. You have to see where this is coming from. So there's a clear intent in a lot of these cases of subjugating an entire section of society. Those who defend these barbaric acts under the garb of Hindu Muslim, and on TV debates I'm often told, 84 mein kya hua, 2002 mein kya hua, ye kya hua, wo kya hua, and they give me data from UPA government, 10 years, this much lynching, what happened, why weren't you there? I am sorry I wasn't there then. I am here today, and it's unacceptable. Just because something wrong happened there does not make it right now. Just because 84 victims did not get justice does not mean 2002 victims should not get justice, or Muzaffarnagar should not get justice. Because when you continue, one of them said that it becomes a pattern, from a trend to a pattern to it becomes a pattern. That's what happens. And lynchings have now started have moved from beyond a trend to becoming a pattern. I go back to my earlier point. It's not just going to be Muslims and Dalits who are going to be lynched. That's not going to happen. And fundamentally, while drafting Masuka, we were very clear about it, that this is not a law for Muslims and Dalits by themselves. This is a law that protects each and every one of us and our liberties as guaranteed to us by the Constitution. Article 21, right to life, which has been upheld recently by the Supreme Court in the right to privacy judgment, which is taken shelter under Article 21, mostly on the other articles. We need to defend our life and our liberty. Tomorrow a mob will turn up here and say, listen, I don't like what this girl is wearing. She's a sex worker. She's offended me, and I have a right to lynch her. You know, while doing research, Anas gave me these statistics. The most number of people researched, if you leave religion out of it, are migrants and sex workers and transgenders. They're the most lynched people. We don't talk about it because it's not a glamorous story, but they're the most lynched people. Which civilized society allows it? This is going to only increase further because the mob will now start dispensating justice. It adds on to the fact that there's an economic slowdown, so people don't have jobs, so they get into mobs. Now you can have all the intellectuals who can ridicule this theory, but every single statistic in every single nation where this violence has increased proportionately to the economy and the GDP falling down. And it's no coincidence that the GDP is fallen about 2% in India at the moment. There's no coincidence in that. There's supposed to be 2 crore jobs generated every year. You're getting less than 3,000, 4,000 jobs a year, or 30,000 jobs, whatever that official number is. There's no coincidence there. So you have a young population, which we thought was a demographic advantage, turning into a demographic nightmare, doing things confident because legally there is no bars to catch them, that they can get away with it, and politically an environment being created where they're being shielded. I go back to the case of Pehlu Khan, where when the accused were taken to the trial court, a lady reaches there and she says, "Ye to Bhagat Singh or Chandrasekhar Azad hai." You compared people. A union minister drapes a tricolor on one accused. In the other instance, the accused are compared to Shaheed Bhagat Singh. These are the same people who sell nationalism day in and day out to us. These are the same people who will never tire to say, "You're not nationalist enough. I am nationalist." That's another matter, another debate, that they never fly the tricolor on their organizations, and I don't want to go there. But the fact is, they go and they tell a person who's lynched people that you are Bhagat Singh. Was Bhagat Singh into lynching? Was Chandrasekhar Azad into lynching? They go that. No action is taken against that person. So in Masuka, we have a provision that is not just the ringlets on the road who are indulging in violence who will suffer the consequences. We have an entire clause where how social media is used to spread these rumors and create this environment. We get down to the base of it. Now again, when I spoke about the law with KTS Tulsiji, and I believe he's about to come now or he's on his way, we discussed in length 66A, 66A that was struck down by the Supreme Court, IT Act, and said, does this fit within the provisions of 66A? Because we have prosecuting somebody for social media rumors. And most lawyers, Sanjay Hegde, KTS Tulsi, and other lawyers, including retired Supreme Court judges and other luminaries from various walks of life, found that this falls within the definition of the constitutional safeguards. This is not as 66A, because 66A was being misused on other grounds. So we've gone into that aspect as well of it, and how we can then tackle the social media menace of spreading rumors, getting to the people who are behind this. The other the other aspect that Anas personally has worked very hard on, and Dipali has helped him, is how police officers need to conduct their duty. What happens is, and you said that 100 number pe call karte to koi uthata hi nahi hai. That's true. That is a general perception. But when you have, and then you spoke about the Supreme Court judgment of police reforms, however, that's not been implemented. However, when in a law, you put down your SOPs on how a case is to be investigated, not less than an IG is supposed to monitor it. IG, not less than an IG. Sorry, I'm not a lawyer, so I pretend to be one. I've gone to court a number of times because these right fingers keep filing FIRs on me, but I'm not a lawyer as yet. I will become one soon. But when an IG, and not less than an IG is monitoring it, it's going to a district magistrate. I think we put in enough safeguards in Masuka that A, the police cannot misuse it, and B, the police are duty bound to follow the standard operating procedure, which means a local influencing politician or the local thug out there who's behind these attacks, whether on women, whether on transgenders, whether on cow, or whatever the issue may be, cannot influence and shut the probe, as we've seen in a number of cases that I've spoken about earlier. I won't get into that. Now, another big conception or another big debate all of us had was, what do we use? What word do we use in the law, Masuka, with regards to addressing the victims? Is the word minority? Is the word legal? Is the word, the various other definitions that you all spoke about? And I think we've come up with a very neutral slash a very correct word, if I may put it that way, vulnerable. We've used the word vulnerable in the law. I don't know if you all have gone through the draft law, how many of you all did, but you did. We've used the word vulnerable. Now, why we use the word vulnerable? So Sanjay Hegde gave me an excellent example. He's a Hindu in Delhi, but of Kannadika origin. So he's a Hindu in Delhi, which is a majority religion, but he's still a minority in Delhi based on linguistical minority. Now in Bombay, then Bombay, now Mumbai, otherwise there'll be another case on me. Then Bombay, when Sanjay was a kid, and he told us the story, I think you were there when he told. He said that, there was a fear that if you don't speak in Marathi, and you speak in any of the South Indian languages, the right-wing goons will thrash you. So his mother would tell him, if you go out, don't say you're a Hegde, don't speak in Kannadika, try learn Marathi, speak in English or Hindi. So there was that fear. So the point that I'm making is, when we simplify issues to religion, of majority, minority, that may not always be accurate. A Hindu in Delhi may still be a minority in a linguistic form. A Muslim in Kashmir may still be a minority. So we have to understand that the word majority and minority may not be legally be attainable, but may not on the ground work. Therefore, we use the word vulnerable. The word vulnerable also prevents misuse by the police on Masuka. So for example, if a group of you youngsters are protesting, of course if you protest outside the Prime Minister's house, you'll be called anti-nationals. But nevertheless, all the best to you if you do protest. The police cannot book you under Masuka because the Prime Minister is not vulnerable. I mean, he has a security. It's your democratic right under Article 19 to protest, your freedom of speech. So the word vulnerable does not violate Article 19. So we've tried to enhance a law. Of course, we're all youngsters. I mean, the average age amongst us are those who indulge in lynching. So we said, "Oh, lynching karte to hum kuch acha kaam kare." So we've tried to enact a law, and I'm very proud to say 11 political parties, not 9, have come on board, have been through it, and it's also been mentioned in the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. Through KTS Tulsi and various other legal luminaries, we are seeking time from the Honorable Law Minister, Ravi Shankar Prasad ji, where we want to go, and I was discussing this today in the Supreme Court with Anas, where we want to go and present the law to the Honorable Law Minister. I am not saying Masuka is the solution for all these problems. I am saying that there is a beginning, and if the government is serious about walking the talk, why not have a look at our law and start working on something? Ultimately, any law that's passed has to be made by the wisdom of Parliament. Now, it's very interesting, 2 things I'll tell you before I end. The debate is, why should Parliament make the law? Because law and order is a state subject. Again, somebody in this panel said it, you said it. That's true. That's also the defense the government gives in the Supreme Court. Central government wahi aati hai, law and order hamari dikkat hi nahi. But what happens to violence in Delhi or the union territories? So the central government is in charge. Also, at the end of the day, the Prime Minister is the custodian of the Constitution in a certain way. And there are enough articles that specify. So the center cannot move away from its responsibility of upholding the constitution. So if somebody's constitutional guarantee to life and liberty is being taken away, the government cannot look the other way. Once again, I go back to the Honorable Prime Minister. He says, "Inko mat maro, mujhe maro, inke khilaf action lo, dozier banao, falana karo." In the Supreme Court, it's been 1 year we've been fighting. Tarikh pe tarikh, the central government comes, does not give us a reply. They don't give us a reply in writing. Whatever you stand, give it in writing. They come to the Supreme Court. Tushar Mehta ji comes, says, "I'm not the AG for the state, I'm state AG. I'll only represent Gujarat." Once the AG doesn't come, AG turns up, says it's not a central subject. Says it's not a central subject, Prime Minister says, "I will make a dossier, send it to me." Then they come and take another stand. Why don't you give it in writing to the Supreme Court? There's a notice given to you by the Honorable Supreme Court. Whatever you stand in, give it in writing. Why allow people to get away? For about a year we've been fighting. The notice has come to you, it's been 6 months. Even today was the date. I was in the Supreme Court in the morning. Why don't you simply reply? Why don't you say what your stand is in writing? The fact of the matter is, you cannot hunt with the hare and run with the hound, or hunt with the hound and run with the hare, whatever the phrase is. You cannot do that. And that's what's precisely happening. There is a legal lacuna, there is a political encouragement that is happening, and both of this make very, very toxic. Compounding that, the falling GDP has made the situation even worse. I want to end by saying one thing once again to each one of you. I'm not here to pitch Masuka to you all, but since most of y'all are law students, read about the law. Ultimately, I repeat, it's the wisdom of Parliament that has to prevail. They can make a central legislation like they made in the SC/ST Act, and our states can implement it. They can make a special, like they made after the Nirbhaya incident. We had the Verma Commission recommendations, and we had special laws. We have special laws for child protection despite violence against anybody being unacceptable. We have special acts against children. The need of the hour today is a law against mob vigilantism, because today we are suffering from a kind of problem. The NCRB contacted us and told us we are now going to start keeping a data of mob lynching, which is very good. That's one of our provisions in Masuka. We were all very happy until Anas called me and told me in his typical UP style, "Bhaiya, wo रख तो देंगे, पर उनके पास mob lynching का definition क्या है? How will they keep a data if you don't have the definition?" So it's one thing to do something for the newspaper. Say NCRB's contacted Team Masuka, we now keep a data of lynching. You've not defined what is lynching. How will you keep a data? So we are trying to fight this battle on different grounds. We believe India is a country where there is no one idea. There is no one way of being Indian. There are as many Indias as there are as many ways of being Indians. I'm not getting into the morality of whether one should eat a particular meat or should not eat a particular meat. But I do want to get into the morality that even if I'm eating a particular kind of meat, you cannot enter my bedroom, open my fridge, and lynch me to death and have a union minister drape a tricolor on my killers. That is not the idea our founding fathers formed India on. With that, I want to once again thank each and every one of you for having me and my team here today. You guys have been wonderful, and once again, I'm so proud to see you guys speak so passionately against mob lynching. It is truly barbaric, it is truly unacceptable in any civilized democratic society. Let's not get into water arbitrary, what happened 84, what happened 47, what happened Babur's time, what happened Ghazni time. Let's not get into that. Let's address the problem that the problem exists today, and how can we deal with it. Because at the end of the day, the Constitution is a living document. You taught me well on this. It's a living document. So we need to add this to it at the moment, because this is the problem we are facing. Thank you very much. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.
Thank you for those kind words, sir. Wise words. Now I'd like to invite on stage Advocate Vinod Diwakar, sir, Senior Standing Counsel, Delhi High Court, to kindly address the guidance.
Thanks for holding me on dais. The organizers of the program, the jury members, students. the topic is mob lynching. The students who are here done a good job to the best of their understanding. They put their views forward, cited certain examples, giving how the Indian law enforcement agencies are treating, how the politicians are behaving, and how the people of this country is perceiving. So all this facet has been addressed. Because I'm a professional, I would rather confine myself to the issues which are basically, to my understanding, related to the law, governance, and how the law could be followed. So lynch, the word, as the dictionary say, it's extrajudicial punishment. It's a punishment without trial. It's a punishment by the mob which has no authority to execute or to give punishment. This is what the word lynch say. What we have been reading about word lynching, lynch. This originates from 17th century by Charles Lynch. A court was formed in America. The Britishers had started lynching the Americans, the original Americans, the blacks later on. To prosecute them in extra constitutional court or extra judicial system was involved. The person who presided over that forum was known as Charles Lynch in 1736. I made my notes right now because I was not prepared for the program and I was not expected to speak. So I'm taking some clues and some idea from my notes which I have during the discourse I have noted down. So this is how it has traveled till today. Thereafter, Negroes, when the one country invaded another country, the rulers lynched those whom they wanted to rule. If we come to India, during the time of invasions, invaders came, they lynched, mass murder happened, and now post-independence we are discussing here, and post-2014 also. Certain examples have been cited post-2014. So if I start my journey post-independence India, there has been atrocities committed on the vulnerable section of the society. It's been committed to some extent. The judicial setup protected. The judicial pronouncement with a great respect to those who have pronounced the judgments. They have not upheld the constitutionality and the provisions of the criminal jurisprudence. I may cite certain examples. The mass murders in Bihar, 32, 30, 40, 60 Dalit people have been killed. The killers has been acquitted by the High Court. Appeals pending in Honorable Supreme Court. The reasons for acquittal is well known. Technicalities of law. Evidence could not be believed upon. No case made out. No offence happened. These are certain parameters on the basis of which a judgment basically rests. So, if I say the massacres of 1968, it happened in Tamil Nadu, 44 people killed. In 1885, 32 people killed, again in Tamil Nadu. The Ranveer Sena in 1996, 21 Dalits, 11 women, 6 children. And post 2014 also some lynching has been happening. The crime cannot be justified. The criminal should not be spared. The rule of law should be above. Every government, every institution in a democracy has to uphold the sanctity of the rule of law. Now I come to the criminal jurisprudence, criminal aspect of the law which you are being here talking about. Whether in this scenario a new act is necessary or not. Section 141 of IPC defines unlawful assembly. I don't find any difference between mob and unlawful assembly. If you read this definition of section 141, it is almost mob. Mob have no intention, no conscience, no sense. Sometimes it commits crime in fringe of movements. And if it is planned way, there are other sections in the IPC which could deal in a better way. Right name, 147, 146, 320, 302, 307, 308, sections dealing with the crime. And these are the general crimes which happen in society, in mob lynching also. So to my mind, no law is required. It's a sufficient provision in IPC. The more law you enact, the more complications will come. And what we have been seeing in the past days, you enact a law, it will create a confusion for the others. So there is a very well definition. We can deal with the present setup and scenario. The second point which my friend is raised about fundamental rights. So these fundamental rights are not one-way traffic. There are certain fundamental duties attached with every right. So it's crushing upon the state, abusing machinery, state machinery is not going to give any relief in long term. Ultimately, the society has to run by the law. And the protectors of the law, of course, is the executive. So you have to bring reforms in the existing system only. Or otherwise you have to do revolution or reactionary. If you do a reactionary, if you go reactionary, then we don't know where our future will go. If you take this democracy in long way, then you have to bring reforms within a setup, within this framework. So every time making women cry, saying that these laws are not sufficient, you are again inviting troubles for yourself. My friend has cited certain examples. Because what I have learned in criminal law is the crime, we do investigate crimes, not criminals. And the present setup is well competent enough to investigate the crime. If one crime happens in society, there is a procedure how to investigate it. It may be supervised by one another or any third person. Ultimately, the investigating officer has to investigate the offence. The Supreme Court's various pronouncements has stated how to investigate, what is the procedure to investigate a crime. It's very well defined. RN dispute, you can refer, this judgment is commonly referred in courts as to how the investigation is conducted. What is the power of a police officer? How the police officer has to maintain case diaries. So these are well established procedures. Just we have to evolve. We have to adopt in a true sense. This is what is required. The third one is, I'll refer one case, Najib case. I'll tell you what I learned about this case is. Najib is a student of Jawaharlal Nehru University. Before his disappearance, almost 10 days before he has joined Jawaharlal Nehru University. During that time, some election of the hostel was going on. I'll tell you what is the genesis, how we interpreted what is the actual facts. You may agree, you may not be, but these are the facts which are on record in court. During that election, two candidates who are contesting the hostel election entered into the Najib's room. They entered into the Najib's room. They tried to persuade as we do कि साहब मेरे को वोट दो, आप नए हॉस्टल में आए हैं, मैं सेक्रेटरी की पोस्ट के लिए खड़ा हूँ. The man who was asking for the vote was wearing a धागा in his hand, कलेवा. The Najib said कि आप कलेवा पहन के मेरे रूम में कैसे घुसे हो? Get out of this room. Najib's friend was also there in the room, his roommate. He also objected. झगड़ा हुआ, उत्तम गुत्था हुई. यूनिवर्सिटी के प्रेसिडेंट को बुलाया, हॉस्टल के प्रेसिडेंट को बुलाया, वार्डन आए. ये घटना रात में 11 बजे की. बात यह है कि चाटा क्यों मारा? पहला चाटा नजीब ने मारा. ये ऑन रिकॉर्ड है. जेएनयू के प्रेसिडेंट ने लिख के कंप्लेंट दी हुई है. सबसे पहली कंप्लेंट जेएनयू के प्रेसिडेंट की है ऑन रिकॉर्ड पुलिस को. ये चाटा क्यों मारा? रिटेलिएशन में उन्होंने भी कुछ चाटे मारे. बैठ के झगड़ा हुआ, डिसीजन ये निकला. उसमें हॉस्टल का प्रेसिडेंट था, जेएनयू का प्रेसिडेंट था, नजीब का रूम पार्टनर था, हॉस्टल वार्डन और 2-3 लड़के वो भी थे जिनके ऊपर एलिगेशन थे. ये मैटर पुलिस को दे दो और नजीब की 1 हफ्ते के लिए हॉस्टल में एंट्री बैन कर दो, क्योंकि इन्होंने सबसे पहले हाथ चलाया है और इस तरह की बात रखी है. बात यहीं खत्म हुई. दूसरा ग्रुप जिसके ऊपर एलिगेशन है वो रात में 12 बजे पुलिस स्टेशन चला गया कि झगड़ा हुआ है, मामला बढ़ सकता है, पुलिस को कंप्लेन कर दें. 1 बजे नजीब जेएनयू से निकले और गायब हो गए, अभी तक गायब है. ये फैक्ट्स हैं. अब इस केस को इन्वेस्टिगेट दूंगा, बाकी का भी दे सकता हूँ. अब इस केस को इन्वेस्टिगेट करने के लिए क्या हुआ साहब? जिस जेएनयू के प्रेसिडेंट ने, मोहित पांडे ने कंप्लेंट दर्ज कराई थी, वो सुबह अपनी कंप्लेंट से रिट्रैक्ट कर लिया. उन्होंने दूसरी कंप्लेंट दर्ज की और उसमें लिखा कि साहब ये मामला खाली लड़ाई झगड़े का नहीं है, ये विषय कुछ और है, और 5 लड़कों के नाम लिखे उसमें. इन लोगों ने मारा जो उस समय हॉस्टल में नहीं थे, ऐसा रिकॉर्ड पे है. कहना ये एलिगेशन है, अभी तक फैक्ट्स थे सारे. जो हुआ वो ग्रुप कह रहा हम तो हॉस्टल में थे उस दौरान जब ये झगड़ा. हाई कोर्ट में एक पिटीशन आती है हैबियस कॉर्पस कि भाई नजीब को ढूंढो. ढूंढना चाहिए, एक देश का नागरिक गायब हुआ है, स्टूडेंट गायब हुआ है, ढूंढना चाहिए. लॉ एनफोर्सिंग एजेंसी की को ये जिम्मेदारी बनती है, उनका ये दायित्व भी और ड्यूटी भी, उनको ढूंढना चाहिए. हाई कोर्ट में एक पिटीशन आई, 2 डीसीपी सुपरवाइज करने के लिए लगाए गए, 10 इंस्पेक्टर, 250 पुलिस वाले इस केस को इन्वेस्टिगेट कर रहे हैं. 4 बार पूरा जेएनयू सैनिटाइज किया गया. टाइम पे स्टेटस रिपोर्ट आ रही है. सारी चीजें एक व्यक्ति को ढूंढने के लिए लग रही है, बिल्कुल लगनी चाहिए. मैं इस हक में नहीं हूं कि कोई क्राइम हुआ है, कोई डिसअपियर हुआ है तो उसको नहीं ढूंढना चाहिए, लेकिन चीजों को हमें कम्युनिटी इफेक्ट और सोसाइटी की वेलबींग के हिसाब से भी सोचना चाहिए. कलर चढ़ाना, कलर उतारना बहुत आसान है, लेकिन जो मूल कलर है ना, उसको बदलने से बहुत सारी चीजें खराब नहीं हो जाती, सही नहीं हो जाती. फिर बहुत सारी चीजें आई इस ब्रैकेट में, मैं नहीं जा रहा हूँ, इशूज पे लंबी डिबेट हो जाएगी, इशू भी भटक जाएंगे. दिल्ली पुलिस बार बार स्टेटस रिपोर्ट फाइल कर रही है, जितनी कोशिश की जा सकती करी जा रही है. ये मैंने एक पक्ष बताया, इसको नहीं रोक रहा हूँ मैं. अब दिल्ली पुलिस की वेबसाइट पे जाइए. दिल्ली पुलिस की वेबसाइट पे आप एक मिसिंग पर्सन का एक अलग से उन्होंने कॉलम बनाया हुआ है, शाम को चेक करना वेबसाइट पे जाके. 1,35,000 लोग दिल्ली से गायब हैं. एक दिन में गायब नहीं हुए, 2014 के बाद गायब नहीं हुए. हर लोग 6 लड़कियां जो 12वीं क्लास से कम उम्र की गायब होती हैं दिल्ली से. 14 लोग रोज गायब होते हैं. कितनी एसआईटी बनी? क्या ये राज्य सरकार का काम नहीं है, दिल्ली पुलिस का काम नहीं है इन्वेस्टिगेट करना? क्या मेरा और आपका फर्ज नहीं हाई कोर्ट में हेबियस कॉर्पस फाइल करें और कहें कि 6 बच्चे रोज कहां गायब हो रहे हैं, 14 लोग कहां गायब हो रहे हैं रोज? क्या अदालतों को नहीं सोचना चाहिए? क्या पुलिस को नहीं सोचना चाहिए? क्या मुझे आपको नहीं सोचना चाहिए इस विषय पे? कहां जा रहे हैं सब? ये डिबेट का इशू होना चाहिए ना, इस पूरी सोसाइटी के वेलबींग के लिए है ना ये। दिल्ली से एक भी लोग गायब नहीं होने चाहिए ना, किसी के साथ क्राइम नहीं होना चाहिए ना, रोड रेज नहीं होनी चाहिए ना, एक दिन में नहीं होनी चाहिए, कभी भी नहीं होनी चाहिए। क्यों नहीं हो रहा? ये मेरे आपकी सेंसिटिविटी खत्म हो गई क्राइम के लिए। हम लोगों ने क्रिमिनल्स के बारे में ज्यादा सोचना शुरू कर दिया, क्राइम के बारे में सोचना कम कर दिया है। हम लोग क्राइम के बारे में नहीं सोचते, हम क्राइम में जो फीलिंग्स डाली जा रही हैं उसके बारे में ज्यादा सोचते हैं। ये हमारी सोच का एक पहलू है, ये भी हमें सोचना चाहिए। और बाकी केसेस हैं, एक केस की मुझे डिटेल में जानकारी थी इसलिए मैंने रखा। अब पॉलिटिकल बात तो मैं इसलिए नहीं कहूंगा क्योंकि मुझे पॉलिटिक्स आती नहीं है। मुझे खाली जितनी कानून मैंने पढ़ा है, जितना कानून मैं जानता हूं उसके हिसाब से मैं बात कर रहा हूं। किसी एक व्यक्ति के साथ अनफॉर्चुनेट इंसिडेंट होता है तो राज्य का मुख्यमंत्री घर जाता है, भारत का प्रधानमंत्री जिम्मेदार है। बंगाल में, केरल में घटना होती है तो प्राइम मिनिस्टर रिस्पॉन्सिबल है, दिल्ली में घटना होती है तो प्राइम मिनिस्टर रिस्पॉन्सिबल है, क्योंकि मुखिया है ना देश के 125 करोड़ के, जिम्मेदारी लिया ना छाती ठोक के। बाकी देश में कोई नहीं है, कोई मशीनरी लॉ एंड ऑर्डर नहीं है, ना कोई चीफ मिनिस्टर है, ना एसपी, ना एसपी, ना एसएसपी, ना डीएसपी, ना डीएम, ना एसडीएम, ना एडीएम, ना सेक्रेटरी, ना चीफ सेक्रेटरी, ना एडिशनल सेक्रेटरी, ना एमपी, ना एमएलए, ना मंत्री। किसी का कोई दायित्व नहीं है, जिम्मेदारी खाली है कि व्यक्ति को, क्योंकि दायित्व लिया। मेरा पर्पज 2014, 2022 के बाद का नहीं है। मेरा खाली इतना पर्पज है, क्योंकि मॉब लिंचिंग का विषय हो गया, लास्ट में छोटी सी 2 मिनट की मैंने बात रखी है, विषय को और भी आगे ज्यादा बढ़ाया जा सकता है। इस समाज में, इस भारतवर्ष के लिए हमें एकजुट रहने के साथ साथ इसके कंस्ट्रक्टिव डेवलपमेंट में हमारा क्या योगदान हो, उसमें हम सक्रियता बढ़ाएंगे तो शायद हम इस जन्म में अपने आप के से जस्टिफाई कर पाएंगे, अपने काम को जस्टिफाई कर पाएंगे, अपनी सोच को जस्टिफाई कर पाएंगे। ऐसी मेरी सोच है, दूसरे की हो सकती नहीं हो सकती मुझे नहीं पता। मेरी सोच ये भी है कि इस सिस्टम को, इस देश को आर्थिक, सामाजिक या कानूनी रूप से आगे बढ़ाने के लिए मेरा व्यक्तिगत क्या योगदान हो सकता है। समाज में मतभेद कम से कम हो, इस समाज में सभी लोग, हर जाति, हर धर्म के व्यक्ति साथ रहें। इसका घर्षण को, इसके फ्रिक्शन को कैसे कम किया जाए, इसके लिए मेरा व्यक्तिगत तौर पे क्या कर रहे हैं, इसका दायित्व भी मुझे और आपको लेना चाहिए। ये मेरी और आपकी सोच होनी चाहिए। मैं 50,000 साल पहले क्या हुआ, कांग्रेस ने क्या किया, बीजेपी ने क्या किया, मैं तो प्रोफेशनल हूँ, मुझे कोई लेना देना नहीं है। मुझे लेने देना, मेरा फाइल मुझे क्या बोलती है, मेरा कानून मुझे क्या कहता है, जितनी मुझे समझ है। लेकिन सामाजिक मुद्दों के प्रति अगर असंवेदनशीलता, सेंसिटिवनेस हमारी रही, अगर सोशल हार्मोनी के लिए हमने काम नहीं किया, वो कहीं ना कहीं आने वाली पीढ़ियां हमें कसूरवार ठहराएंगी, हम गुनाहगार होंगे। ये क्राइम हम अपने आप से करेंगे अगर उसको ठीक राइट पर्सपेक्टिव में नहीं सोचेंगे। ये खाली भारतवर्ष की नहीं, अगर भारतवर्ष से बाहर निकलेंगे, दुनिया के इस ग्लोब में देखेंगे तो एक स्टेटमेंट का इंटरप्रिटेशन यहाँ क्या होता है और यहाँ से 400 किलोमीटर दूर क्या होता है और वहां से 600 किलोमीटर या 3000 किलोमीटर दूर क्या होता है, इसका अंदाजा आप सब लोग अखबार में रोज देख सकते हैं और मीडिया स्क्रॉल करके देख सकते हैं। अगर ग्लोबल विलेज बनाना है दुनिया को, वो भारत की भागीदारी इस विश्व के पटल पे रखनी है तो सोच भी ग्लोबल रखनी पड़ेगी, डिसीजन भी ग्लोबल लेने पड़ेंगे और पूरी सोसाइटी के कम्प्रिहेंसिव सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट के लिए काम करना पड़ेगा। इस सोच के साथ ही हम आगे बढ़ सकते हैं, इस विचार के साथ हम आगे बढ़ सकते हैं। मेरा व्यक्तिगत विचार कुछ हो सकता है, पर मुझे सामाजिक विचार तो सामाजिकता के हिसाब से रखना पड़ेगा। मैं कोर्ट में किसी भी पहलू की बहुत अच्छी तरीके से बहस दोनों तरह से कर सकता हूं, लेकिन शाम को तो मुझे अपने आप से न्याय करना पड़ेगा कि मेरा जस्टिफिकेशन है या नहीं है, इस सोसाइटी के लिए मेरी कोई जिम्मेदारी है या नहीं है। कानून बनाने से समाज नहीं बदलते, कानून के ऊपर बहस करने से भी समाज नहीं बदलते। हाँ, एक दिशा जरूर मिलती है। समाज को बदलने के लिए, देश को बदलने के लिए, आगे बढ़ने के लिए मुझे और आपको बदलना पड़ेगा, ये विषय लेकर आना पड़ेगा और उसके बारे में हमें आपको सबको चिंतन करना पड़ेगा कि कानून किस हालत में बने और किन किन सरकारों ने कैसे कैसे फॉलो किया और क्या होना चाहिए। 1826 में सीआरपीसी बना, लॉर्ड मैकाले ने बनाया। 1857 में म्यूटिनी हुई, उससे पहले हमारे यहाँ मुंशिप कोर्ट थी, हिंदू मुस्लिम की अलग अलग कचहरी चलती थी। म्यूटिनियर्स को प्रोसिक्यूट करने के लिए सीआरपीसी हैज बीन इनेक्टेड, implemented to bring a uniform law. And you will love to hear in the initial days of the CRPC, the concept of this territorial jurisdiction has come from that point only. The Indian judge could not prosecute a British citizen. And at the first instance, Britishers could not be prosecuted in India. Later it's been diluted. So law is always made by the state to show his supremacy over the citizen, and we always follow it, and we say it's a law-abiding system. What is the rule of law? What is the rule of law? Who has made it? For whom he has made it? Who is implementing it? I and you are implementing it? Whose authority does it have? It is the political will. It is the executive supremacy, not me and you. So, at the end, I conclude my remark. Senior Advocate KTS तुलसी साहब has come. तो मुझे लग रहा है कि आप उनको सुनने के लिए ज़्यादा इंतजार करेंगे और मैं भी बहुत ज़्यादा वेट नहीं कराऊंगा। मैं अपनी बात को यहीं ख़त्म कर रहा हूँ, लेकिन जो मैंने कहा है उसको सोचिएगा, समझिएगा। रंग देने के लिए तो रंग मेरे पास बहुत हैं, आपके पास बहुत हैं, लेकिन मेरे आपके ओरिजिनल रंग ख़त्म नहीं होने चाहिए। जय भारत, जय भारत।
Thank you, sir. Let me welcome Mr. KTS Tulsi ji. Mr. KTS Tulsi ji stands strong as INBA's guiding light. Having completed his studies from Government College, Chandigarh and Punjab University, Chandigarh, Mr. Tulsi ji is one of the unhindered voice of the legal fraternity that continue to shimmer during the turbulent times. Mr. Tulsi ji is a senior advocate at the Supreme Court of India. He has been Additional Solicitor General of India from 1990 to 1996. From 2010 to 2012, Mr. Tulsi ji was the Vice Chairman of the Law Commission of India. He was also nominated to the Rajya Sabha in 2014. Having published over 100 articles in the leading national newspapers and legal journal, Mr. Tulsi ji has authored Digest of Accident Claims Cases and Goswami and Tulsi's Landlord and Tenant Cases published by the Eastern Law House. We welcome you, sir.
May I request Kaviraj sir to kindly felicitate KTS Tulsi ji. Tehseen sir, it will be a pleasure to be the part of the session. statement before we begin with the panel, as the request has come.